Hey, it's Smoke Monster, and today I'm going to be checking out the Hyperkin Duke, a reissue or reimagining of the original OG Xbox's big controller that came to be known as the Duke through the years. And before I show this off, and let me just start by saying I'm really impressed with this, which is why I'm going to do this review, which I'm showing off ideas of my own. This is not sponsored or anything. I actually got this through an Amazon warehouse deal for 25 bucks shipped. But I do think it's probably worth the full price, and I'll show you why in a minute. But before we get to this, let me just give you a quick run-up and sort of history of the Duke controller, which I have a real one right here. And this controller has become sort of maligned through the years, and it's not hard to see why. It is big and kind of unwielding, and the D-pad on it is particularly bad. It's one of the worst I've ever felt. But actually, when this first came out, this is the controller I played Halo on for the first couple years, and generally people were really happy with it. What happened was, all of a sudden, Microsoft came out with the S, which is the redesigned smaller controller, and this is a real masterpiece of a controller. Back in the day, it still doesn't have the world's greatest D-pad, but it's a way better D-pad than the Duke had. The layout is so much better for Halo and 3D games that everybody, including myself, we all jumped ship from the Duke right away the second this came out. And the Duke, it's like they just disappeared. We just got rid of them. We didn't even save them for like friends to use. We got generic versions of the S for friends. And so the Duke kind of slipped into obscurity. And I got rid of my original Duke. I might have had two of them. I have, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 S controllers around from Halo Night days. But through the years, I came across one, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago at Goodwill. I felt it in the store and I was like, this actually feels really good, you know, now that I haven't touched it for a while. And I ended up I've gotten a couple of them through Goodwill. Those days are probably come and gone. You can still find them reasonably on eBay. It doesn't cost you a fortune. They're not exactly easy to find out in the wild anymore, though. But it is a really nice, high-quality controller that feels excellent in your hand for 3D games. And even for Halo, it's fine. I'd probably use the S controller for that one in particular. But for general 3D games, this is a nice, big, luxurious-feeling controller. And so it's no wonder that Hyperkin wanted to reissue it, because a lot of us, once you feel the thing, have a lot of nostalgia for it. And if you didn't know about the history of the original Duke, you have to go back to probably the Sega Saturn, which had this 3D controller. Mainly, it came bundled with Nights into Dreams, I believe, and this thing feels very good too. It has such a great D-pad on it too, compared to the Duke. But the 3D, you know, it's a single stick, and this was before, I guess, they had sort of refined the design of these thumbsticks. So the 3D stick is it's okay. It's fine. It's serviceable for Sega Saturn games. But this is another, then you can switch actually from analog to digital controls here with the Switch. But this is another controller that sort of came and went. Doesn't get a ton of attention, but people like this one, and it does feel really good. It came out in Japan in white. Actually, I've got that one here too. Nice and colorful. Yeah, great stuff. And this, of course, you're going to recognize that design directly moves to the Dreamcast controller. You can see there's no doubting the similarities here, especially when it's in your hand. Unfortunately, I think that the Dreamcast controller took a step back in terms of its D-pad. But other than that, I always really liked the Dreamcast controller. I think it's only come under critique recently, because back in the day, everybody was perfectly fine with this, and I didn't hear a lot of complaints, at least. But then again, you didn't actually hear a whole lot of complaints about the N64 controller back in the day either, and nowadays people are sort of up in arms about that. But you go from the Dreamcast controller, it's no secret that the Xbox is sort of a spiritual successor to the Dreamcast. A lot of us even consider it like a Dreamcast 2. There was a lot of involvement between Sega and Microsoft, and they decided to go from that to this. And it is a step up from this. Once again, the D-pad was a step down. But that brings us up to the Duke and to the S, and the S, of course, led to your Xbox 360 controller, which is a real perfection of the S, I think, in terms of layout, well, maybe not a perfection, because in my opinion, this is the perfect 3D controller, the Xbone controller, because you get the S layout, of course, 360, slightly modified. It feels awesome in your hand. And then the coup d'etat is the clicky D-pad, and this thing is a real masterpiece. If only it were slightly faster performing. It has about 8 milliseconds of lag, so that's the only catch when it's wired. But other than that, fantastic controller. And so we owe this controller in part to the Duke and to that entire line of Sega controllers. Now that brings me to the Hyperkin, which was reissued a few years ago. This is not new. Of course, mine came from Amazon Warehouse, so I don't have to worry about breaking the plastic. And let me just get into this thing. As you can see, it comes in a really nice high-quality box. Lots of padding and everything, if that matters to you. It has a detachable micro USB cable that attaches to it. And here's the controller itself. And I have to say, putting this directly side by side with the Duke, it feels fantastic. This is great. The Duke has a little more texture, but this actually has they feel about of the same weight, and I would say that sort of translates in your head to quality. The Hyperkin is slightly more hard-edged, I would say, whereas the Duke is a little more smooth. But all in all, this is extremely nice feeling controller in your hand. And it has a little secret hidden in here. It has an OLED screen, and I'll show you what that's used for. And it has a really long cable, and this actually harkens back to the Xbox controller. It has sort of a breakaway looking thing on it, which I assume is a ferrite magnet maybe, but it's just styled after the breakaway cable on the OG Xbox controllers, which is kind of a nice touch. And as I power it on here, it gives you a nice rumble, and then you have the original Xbox loading screen, and it just plays the whole thing there, and then it comes to a static Xbox logo, which in person, it just looks wicked. This thing, that alone sold it for me when I saw that it came with an OLED screen. There's a great Spawnwave review of this where he does a complete breakdown of the controller, and he shows that it's actually a square OLED screen in here that does the entire Xbox loading sequence on it, which is cool. And I just think that is possibly the coolest thing I've ever seen on a controller. And yeah, I do love a good gimmick, and that is how you do a gimmick. That's cool as heck. And if you touch it, you just get to see that loading sequence again, and it's totally pointless. But that's what makes it so great, really, in my opinion. So you get to watch, you get to not only hold the Duke, but you get to watch the Xbox loading sequence as much as you want. It'll just keep playing nonstop. And I don't think anyone has been able to capture just how sharp this looks in person. It's super sharp, super vibrant, and because it's OLED, the black just disappears, and what you're left with is just a floating Xbox logo in your hand. And all of that would be for nothing if the controller felt like crap, but this actually feels fantastic. And I am extremely picky about controllers, and so obviously my only critique is that it has the Duke's D-pad on it. Would have been the ultimate controller to me that they could have done with this would be to use an Xbox One style clicky D-pad on here, and then you would have perfected the Duke, really, other than maybe the weird button layout on it. But yeah, great controller, highly recommend it. Even if you have to buy it at the full price, it's well worth it. But keep an eye out on Amazon Warehouse deals too. Maybe you can pick one up like I did. I'm probably going to be grabbing a few more of these. This is an Xbox One controller and Windows, so this is going to work perfectly fine in Mister and any sort of emulation that you're going to be doing. And for Windows games, like, it'd be kind of cool to play some of the Halo Anniversary reissues and things, and maybe some Red Dead Redemption on here. It comes with a few other colors, like clear red, green, orange, and blue. And there were some transparent Xbox controllers originally. I actually really like the black, but if you're into those ice kind of translucent colors, you should check those out too. Anyways, fantastic controller. This is one for people who used the Duke back in the day and want to get the feel again. Somebody just jumping into it, this might be an interesting curiosity, but it's probably going to feel gigantic to you. And they say these things are good for people with big hands. I have regular sized hands, and it feels awesome to me. So I've always loved the Duke. I gave up on it when the S came out, and I'm sort of traitorous for that, but when I did get back into it, I really liked it. So great job, Hyperkin. And thank you for watching the video, and a huge thank you to my patrons. Patrons at any level get an automatic invite to the Smoke Monster Elite Discord, where you can come hang out and talk Xbox with me if you want. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.